So I am now at the last stages of creating this sculpture, and I'm at a point where I want to put the butterfly wings on the side of her head, and I want to put her hair on. I have an idea for putting the butterfly wings on, and hopefully it's going to work. I've done a lot of research on what I wanted to try, looked at a lot of doll making and things like that, and I've come up with my own method, which I hope is going to work with the spun cotton. So let's get to making those butterfly wings. I knew that I wanted the wings to have some translucence. I wanted the light to shine through areas of the butterfly's wing. So I crumpled up a piece of wax baking paper, and then I came up with this idea for creating the wing. So I'm starting off, I found this printable online. It's basically a preschool craft printable, can't speak. Sorry about that. But it's a printable of the wing shape, and I just needed the basic wing shape. And I am rolling up pieces of the cotton, adding the glue to it, and trying to follow the outline of that wing shape on top of the wax paper. At this point, I wasn't sure if it was going to stick to the wax paper. I'm hoping that that will work. Otherwise, I'm going to have to try something else, and we'll see. The wax paper itself is just taped down with some painter's tape to this printable sheet. So I am going to finish adding all the little pieces of the cotton. It was a little bit difficult. The cotton kept sticking to my fingers because I'm using such tiny, tight rolls, and I was doing it in small little bits at a time. That way, I was layering parts of cotton over other pieces and trying to give it more structure, trying to give it a little more strength that way. At least that's what my hope is. But I'm going to finish this up. It's going to have to dry overnight, and then we will see what the results are. So it looks like it successfully dried and adhered to the wax paper. So now the goal is to replicate this on the other side. I think what I want to do is cut this out, and then I can build it while at the same time wrapping some of the fresh cotton around the side that's already dry. And I'm going to cut a couple of tabs out of the wax paper because I think I'm going to need to have the tabs in order to adhere this to the head. I think these are about the right size, but I need something to kind of stick it down onto the side of the head. So the thought is that if I cut these out, then I can just follow the outline of this shape on this side when I add the cotton here. I'll let it dry on this side and then do any touching up before I add it to the actual sculpture. So let's get to that. So it looks like this was successful. I have cut these out, and you see they have a nice wing shape. Both of them do. There is a little bit of a tab here with the wax paper. Some of the translucency is there. Some of it I lost a little bit. I think in the future, if I were to do something like this and I wanted the translucency, I would need a slightly larger wing. Or it may just be a little bit more skill that would be involved with working with the spun cotton in the webbing here, maybe using smaller pieces. This is, again, my first time using spun cotton in sculpture. But overall, I like the results, and they appear to be the correct size. I initially attempted to adhere this to try to put a pin in it. I thought because it was cotton, the pin would go right through, but it's hard enough that I can't get the pin through. I experimented a little bit on the bottom and I couldn't even get a pin through anywhere. So it's too dense to pin. I'm debating if I want to put a little dot of glue on it before I start adhering the cotton, or if I just want to attempt to add the cotton on, and I may just go for that. But the tab is definitely necessary if you're going to add an appendage on here. I thought a little bit too about how sturdy this is. It's slightly bendable. I don't know if it would snap in shipping, so that would be something to take care of. You know, if I were to send this out to a gallery for exhibition, that would be something to consider. But overall, I think it's going to be fine. The issue here would be to try to align both wings up at a good spot on the head. I think that would be about it. I think I'm going to have to try to like mark it or something and then make sure everything lines up, because otherwise it seems a little off. Let's see. I think I've got to trim this tab. Sorry. Trim this tab down just a little bit because it's coming over the eye on this side. So if I put this here, maybe I need to do that side first, and then I can align the other side up where they're probably about even. Let's go ahead and get to that. I used a lot of glue on these. I used an entire jar. I've been making 2 portions of glue. That seems about the max I can make and keep at a time, because the glue will go bad. If you don't use it quickly enough, and just in the period of time trying to allow the piece to dry, the glue started to smell. It doesn't smell on the sculpture once it's dried, but in the fridge, yeah, it started to smell and go off. So that's just something else to keep in mind if you're going to try this yourself. Anyway, let's get to adding these on. And then I want to add the hair as well to the top of the sculpture. And I think once I put the hair in there in between the butterfly wings, that's also going to give it the ability to stick on there pretty well. As far as the translucency is concerned, I might come in here when I paint and use like a clear gel medium with some iridescent medium added to it. We'll see. I'm thinking about it. I debated too about painting this before I put it on, but I think it'll be better if I paint it when it's on the figure. So anyway, let's get to adding these wings. Okay, so the head is not perfectly round, so I'm trying to make sure these stay lined up. And I think this side has the most space on it, so I'm going to start with this side, and then I am going to put the other side on. But I figured if I start with this side, I'll have an idea of where this needs to be placed. So the tab is right here, and what I need to do is adhere it down. So I'll use a small bit of cotton and place that on. And then I'm just going to keep layering. You see it's already sort of holding it, and then I just got to keep layering the cotton in such a way that I can get it placed how I want to. Now when you wet it, it will slightly reactivate some of the other cotton around it. So keep that in mind. It won't reactivate all of it, but it may reactivate some of the cotton. So let's see here. It's still not quite how I want it. Let's see, I'm gonna just lift this up, move it over a little bit, and then reapply it down. I feel like I need to put something, the wing is kind of flappy here. I need to put something back here to hold it. Maybe I should have glued it. So there's two possible thoughts here. I may need to do this in stages. Here I am allowing sections to dry and then coming back in and just reinforcing it. That actually came on there pretty well. Let's see. Just don't need to pull it up. I think also, again, I mentioned with the hair, so the hair is going to come back down through here and it will attach to parts of this. So when it does that, just try to get a tiny bit in here. And that should attach it to the head right there. Yeah, that works. Okay. So that will need to dry. Might put another layer up over here and then just a very thin layer. If you put too many layers, it starts bulking out, and that was something that I had to learn. I got one foot was a little larger than the other because I was trying to shape it and struggling with that. So each layer you add adds a little bit of bulk to it. Just something to sort of keep in mind. So you just want to keep adding very small, thin layers until you get it where you want it to be. So technically she doesn't have an ear. And then I guess the question is, do I want to add an ear here where this is at, or will I just put some hair? I might just put some hair over it, but that is attached there to her head. It's a tiny bit here that it needs to lay flat down. So when you're working with this, I found I've worked well with two brushes. This is a mop brush, although technically it is a cheap cosmetic brush, and I think for the entire pack I paid maybe $1 or $2 for this pack of cheap cosmetic brushes. And this holds a lot of the water from the glue in it. It works really well to dampen things and smooth things out. And then I've also been using this brush. It's a filbert. So I can use this to get into little cracks, and I can kind of use the line tip to sculpt a little bit around the eyes and whatnot. The key with it is just to be patient, apply small amounts in some sections, you know, if you're trying to get detail. I did notice that the more glue I use, the smoother it gets, but I still haven't perfected a completely smooth surface. That I think is just going to take time and practice and skill. But overall, I am happy with how this is coming. So let's get her other wing here. So by putting it on the other side, I'm able to kind of judge that that's around the right height for the ear, and I can match it, or the ear, the wing, I can match it up with the eye line there. I'll just gently lay that down and start applying some layers of cotton. This does take a lot of patience. I decided not to put it in the oven. The tutorial I originally watched, she was making a spun cotton mouse ornament, and she was putting it in a toaster oven to dry things out between stages, and that was speeding up her work process. I was a bit concerned about that. I don't have a good track record with working with the oven in such a way. I've had problems with other materials where they would catch fire. You have to be very careful. And she did mention that her spun cotton mouse ornaments have a little bit of singeing on them when they're in the oven. So I was very, very concerned about that, and did not want to take the risk. So I opted not to try to do that. Someone else was mentioning I could try a what are they called? Now I can't think of them. There's an air fryer with a glass container. But again, I was kind of concerned about that. So some of the materials I used in here also, like I used a plastic bottle as the base, and I was just concerned about putting something like that into the oven. So one other quick thing, when you're trying to adhere something like this in here, you want to do it like a very thin, you can kind of stretch the cotton out a bit to a very thin layer, and then just sort of press it in and then seal it in that way. How well you can see in there, just kind of pressing it. I'm going to switch to this brush. It's smaller and I can get in there just a little bit. So that just forms a very thin layer over it. And as you work, you may have to work in thin layers like this and then allow it to dry. Where I live, it's a bit humid. So it's taking anywhere from a day to 2 or 3 days to dry. And that's another reason I'm concerned with working very quickly. I'm letting it dry completely because I don't want there to be any mildew. I don't want it to have any mold or smell. I haven't really had an issue with that so far because I'm letting it go in layers. So there is that. So I think we can start applying the hair. So let's see. With the cotton, you see how I'm just taking the sheets apart. You can paint on it a little bit with the glue and form a shape. So you're going to paint on it, and this will clean right off your work surface. And so as I kind of form the shape, I can bend portions of it to get rid of that rough edge, and then just start to bend it down into the shape that I want it to be. So I'm wanting to do these like curly hair layers. You can also take scissors and cut sections if you need it to be cut. Like this is giving me a hard time here with this point. But I am going to now start applying this like this down here. And then shaping it the way that I want it to shape. It will hold a shape if you let it dry curled like this. I haven't had to put too much of a wire armature into it, but I am going to do this here and do like a light layer after each one, just to try to, very thin layer, just to reinforce it a bit and give it, a little bit of hold. So the goal is I'm going to do this like curly kind of hair around, and I'll decide if I want to add some ears. So we'll see how that goes. Let me do one more of these. Very wet layer. It's kind of folding it in on itself and bringing it down into a kind of like point. And if I need to, I can take, if it's not quite got the end that I want, I'll show you in a second. Let's do her hair like this. Fold a little bit here, like the tip is folding over itself. Again, I'm going to take a very small, very light bit of cotton right here. Just anchor that. This tip right here is not quite what I want it, so I'm just going to take a little bit of the cotton here, add a little bit, and then shape it. Hold it and shape it. So it's a little bit different than clay, but in some ways it is similar to clay. And as long as it's wet, it is malleable. You can move it around however you need it to do. And like I said, it sort of reactivates. Not all of it will. Some of it will dry pretty hard. hard like a clay sculpture at this point. Okay, so there we've got her hair started. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the head and debate whether or not I'm going to give her some ears. Let's get to that. So what I am doing here, I want to make sure that the hair stays where it is. So I'm taking these very, very tiny pieces of cotton. You see how small that is. And I'm laying it over what I have sculpted. And then I'm just going to take this brush and gently wet it and press it into there. This is going to help glue down the pieces and reinforce them. I don't want to use a lot because then again, that's going to add bulk to this and make it bigger, unless I do, if I wanted it to be bulkier. But I've got it around the shape that I want, and I'm just going to keep laying these extremely tiny pieces of cotton here and just gently pushing them into the shapes that I have. I can, while it's still wet, pull it off if I decide that I want something different. I am just kind of trying to make sure, I actually am trying to make sure that the pieces stay where I want them to. So again, just a few very thin layers pressed into the sculpted shapes. And I've used my silicone tools here to also help sculpt some of the shapes. When you're doing this, you can press, lines into this to get different shapes that you may want. Lift parts of this. So some portions of the hair here will actually have, line and shape in it. Little grooves that when I paint it, I can add to it. But she's coming along with the details here. And this will all stick together. So I've got to do both sides of her here. Let's see if I can. Just trying to shape this different ways, make the hair on her head look interesting. There we go. I got the shape back that I wanted. So as long as it's wet, I can still play with it. Once it's dry, this is going to be what it is. So I'm going to layer some hair here over parts of her collar, fill in all of this back, and do this side as well. And then we'll see how she looks once she dries. It'll probably take a couple days to dry, and then I will paint her. Okay, so the first layers of the hair are on. I'm pleased with how it's coming out. Getting a lot of detail. I'm getting areas that are lifting up slightly, although they feel a little bit precarious and it's making me a little bit nervous. The figure's already been knocked over once and I had to stick it up in this weird way on top of my easel propped up to dry because I couldn't lay it down, and I've had an ear fall out. I was able to fix it. So I was debating about what I wanted to try. So I think I should have initially glued this ear down. And I think that was a mistake that I definitely made by not gluing the ear, not the ear, but the wings down to the head before I started working. So I debated about coming back in with like a gel medium or a matte medium over the top. I'm not sure how the cotton would stick to some of that. I think what I'm going to try to do is, because this is still lifting a little bit, I'm going to try to get down in here with a toothpick and some super glue and get that wing on a little bit tighter. So let's just see if we can gently do that. It's a little bit hard to prop her. So my other concern is this is probably going to yellow a bit, but we'll be able to hide that with paint, right? Just gently press that in. It is still damp in spots, but it's almost dry. So I think I am going to be able to work on the next stage. Some of these are still feeling a little bit loose, and I may come back over them with a little bit more of some thin layers of cotton to try to ensure that everything sticks and stays in where it's supposed to. Probably should have asked my son to help me with this because the sculpture is in a lot, kind of an odd angle. So anyway, there's a little bit of the super glue in there, and it's stuck in, and we'll see how this works. It looks like everything has dried completely. So we're on to the final stage. The next video will be me painting her, and that will probably take place over a day or so. I'm going to do it in layers, trying to be patient and let everything dry. But for my first spun cotton sculpture, I am very pleased. I learned a lot, and I'm actually looking forward to using this medium more regularly in my practice. I'm really glad I tried this. So if you give it a try, let me know, and let me know if there's anything you learn along the way. Let's set this aside. I've got a couple of other things to do around the studio and the house today, and then I can get to painting her. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.